It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Tunisia. Part 1, the candidate. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Tunisia's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We are publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, and we also did a media cast introducing ourselves. After this African Cup, we will take on the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So keep an eye out for our episodes there. They'll start coming out in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast on the players in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, and as well as a couple of other factors, and we categorize players into definite, likely, possible to make the squad, or else possible but unlikely and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of players that seem unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in mid-September, I think. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here and tell you who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. I have a new graphic for it here. Section 1, we look at some general information on the team. In Section 2, we look at the candidates and their likelihood of being selected for the final squad. And finally, Section 3, we provide summaries on a couple of things, especially injuries, big players off the team, and we'll summarize the likelihood of the players. Okay, let's move on to Section 1 then. That is team information. And yes, we have been doing big names off the squad here, but we're going to change things up a bit. We'll cover them as we go in Section 2, and then we'll review them in Section 3. So let's move on to a brief discussion of club affiliations for Tunisia, just to give an overview. Tunisia has a very healthy league, and in fact about 50% of their players play domestically, and the 2 biggest clubs represented there with the squad here are Esperance and Club Africain. I think I spelled that wrong, just let me pop an I in there. Okay. Okay, beyond that, we have other leagues in Africa and Asia. And so we have players with teams in Morocco and Egypt, and players with teams in Qatar and UAE. That makes up about 10% of the squad. Outside of Europe, well, we have one player playing in Japan. He's really the only one kind of far outside of the of what we're talking about so far. Then we have small and mid clubs in Europe. Now, it's a bit difficult to judge these things, but we put it at about 15%. It's a very rough estimate. And we give the example of one of the players who plays for Norrköping in Sweden. So this would be maybe clubs that the average person would not really have heard of, or along that lines. Specifically, a lot of Tunisian players play in France. A lot of them were born in France, but surprisingly, not that many of them do play in France on this squad. We give Monaco in the French league as an example, but we put it only at about 5% there. And then another 15%, we would say, kind of bigger to top clubs in Europe, None of them really play for elite clubs, but the top clubs we see here are Burnley in the Premier League in England, Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine, and Copenhagen in Denmark, about the biggest clubs there in Europe. So, yeah, about 50% in the domestic league and about 50% um, outside of that. And those numbers are very rough. They don't even add up to 100%, but kind of did that on purpose to show that it's a rough estimate. Let's move on then to the games in the build up to the Cup. So we're examining the position of players from after the 2023 African Cup, which took place in January of 2024. Tunisia played 18 games over that period. Our narratives, though, are going to start with the actual African Cup there in January 2024. We look at who played in the positions during the Cup, but it's not part of the count there. So we put it in grey here. That was 3 games. They were knocked out in the group stage. And because they were knocked out in the group stage, presumably, the manager resigned, not after the tournament, but on the very day of the 3rd game, handed in his resignation there. We'll talk about that manager situation at the beginning of section 2. And so it was an interim manager coming in after that, and he took them through the friendlies, 2 friendlies in March of 2024, and then 2 World Cup qualifiers. Now, I'm not sure what's going on, and we probably won't get into too much detail about it, but we're going to see 3 interim managers before they hire their next manager. And on a couple of websites, some of them say the one in the middle was actually a manager. I kind of doubt it, because he only lasted 4 games and they didn't do badly in those games. So I'm presuming these are interim managers, and we'll tell you their names in the next section. Anyway, so 2 games March 2024, 2 World Cup qualifiers June 2024, then a new manager, a new interim manager, taking them through the fall games in 2024. So September and October 2024, there were 4 goals, and then another interim manager taking them through the November 2024 games. That's 2 games. So all 6 of those games in the fall of 2024 were qualification games for this cup. And the fact that the new manager came in after that means he didn't actually lead them to this cup. In 2025, he led them through World Cup qualifying, but will lead them through the tournament for this cup. So the new manager guided them through 2 World Cup qualifying games in March of 2024, 2 friendlies in June of 2024, and then 4 World Cup qualifying games in September and October of 2025. I should be saying 2025 for all of these. 2 games in March 2025, 2 friendlies in June 2025, and 4 World Cup qualifiers in September and October 2025. Now, something really curious I want to tell you about is that they had those games on in September. I'm just going to go make sure I'm telling you the right thing, because it's kind of unbelievable. They had a game, World Cup qualifier against Liberia on September 4th, and then against Equatorial Guinea on September 8th. And yet, they had 2 friendly games with Egypt on September 6th and on September 9th. So that makes it 4 games for Tunisia in the space of 5 days. What's going on? And not only that, the players on the team are familiar names. I should say, especially for Egypt, because for Egypt, it looked like some of the starting players were playing in these friendlies. So I was really baffled. A close examination of Tunisia shows that it's really a B team. Some names that will come up on our list here, but generally at the possible unlikely or even seemingly off the squad level are showing up here. But none of the players that we would have expected to start, obviously they were starting in the more important World Cup qualifying games. But isn't that something? 4 games, putting out 2 teams there. Anyway, we don't count those games in our participation count, those 2 friendlies in September of 2024, but we are still a bit baffled by it. Okay, that's it for the recent games. Let's move on to formations over the period. Again, we won't go into too much detail, but we will kind of do a summary of the formations that they use. That's a bit difficult because in 2024, it was various managers, so they might have had different kind of philosophies. But anyway, this is a bit of a breakdown. In 1/3 of the games, or 6 of the 18 games, we have a 4-3-3 formation. And in 5 of the 18 games, we have a 4-2-3-1 formation. So you can see that's always 2 centre backs, not too different from each other, in fact, but that's what we have. So let me kind of tell you some patterns that we see in this. I'll just say in the other 6 games, they used 3 different formations, which we won't get into. But breaking this down, we see a 2-man central defense in 89% of the games, or that is in basically 17 of the 18 games, I think, 16 of the 18 games. And then on the forward line, we see a single forward in 72% of the games, so about 3/4 of the games. But in about 1/4 of the games, they use a 2-man forward line. So keep an eye out for that, and it kind of gives a structure in your mind of how to imagine them, either in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. And we will talk about that a little more when we get into the positions. Our last order of business here is a look at their upcoming games. We're doing this mediacast on November 28th, so they've actually played 3 friendlies for Tunisia in the international break in November. We're not particularly interested in the scores. We're interested in the lineups, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But anyway, they played a 1-1 draw with Mauritania in Tunisia, and then they beat Jordan 3-2 in Tunisia, and their 3rd game on November 18th. So these are November 12th, November 14th, and November 18th. They played Brazil in France, and they tied 1-1 with Brazil. And then after that, in December, they have 3 Arab Cup games. So on December 1st in Qatar, the tournament is, they play Syria. December 4th, they face Palestine. And on December 7th, they face the host, Qatar. Probably the toughest game there. So that is a lot of games to do. Now, we could include these November games kind of in the participation count, but we actually didn't prepare the media cast for that. Plus, we wanted to save these games for part 2, for our kind of last look at the lineups and help us to decide who we think is going to start. It may help us with that part. So we're going to leave these games for part 2, which again will come out in early to mid December, shortly before the Cup. So there we go. We're really curious to see whether they're going to send their A team to the Arab Cup there in early December 2025. The African Cup begins on December 21st, so it would make it quite a busy month for these players. You wonder if their club will let them go to both of them. But there we have it, upcoming games for Tunisia. And we're finished with the team information. So we move on to section 2, which is the main part of our business here. This is about players, so we're gonna look at the players. Let's begin with the managerial situation. Again, we won't go into too much detail on this. But we will tell you the names here. So the manager who is current and will guide them through the tournament is Sami Trabelsi. We'll tell you more about him after we tell kind of the narrative. And then we have those three interim managers. Well, we're only going to name two of them. No, we're not going to actually name them here. What we will do is name our starting manager, Monder Kabir, because he's kind of part of the narrative there. So let's go to the narrative, and then we'll tell you a little bit about Sami Trabelsi. So, I think I put down. I think I put down the wrong name. Monder Kabir was was taking them through the 2021 African Cup. What we need here is Jalal Kadri, who took them through the 2023 African Cup. That's where our narrative begins. Jalal Kadri managed Tunisia actually through the 2022 World Cup as well as the 2023 African Cup. Tunisia was knocked out at the group stage in both, and as I said in section 1, he resigned on the very day of the, after the game. It was a 1-1 draw with South Africa, and Kadri later became manager of a club in Saudi Arabia, Al Hazam. Now, three caretaker managers, and again, I don't want to get into the weeds on this. One of them may not have been a caretaker manager, but we'll say three caretaker managers came in over the rest of 2024, and the last two of them guided them through qualifying for this tournament. All of those games played in the fall of 2024. They did very well. Their goals record was 22-0. So considering they had different managers making some different choices, they went through it quite well. Anyway, Sami Trabelsi came in February of 2025. It's Sami Trabelsi's second stint, and he saw them through from their third game of World Cup qualifying. The first two games had been played quite a bit earlier. So they were in their third game in March of 2025 there, and he brought them to the end of qualification where they finished first in their group and qualified for the next World Cup. And as we say, qualifying for the 2025 African Cup had already been completed before he came in, but now it is his task to guide them through the tournament, just as he did in 2012 and 2013. By the way, that's when he was the manager before. Let's take a bit of a closer look at Sami Trabelsi. He was an international player for Tunisia from 1994 to 2001, and he had 52 caps there, and have played for mostly for Sfaxian in Tunisia, actually, but for a short time played for Al Rayyan in Qatar. He took part in a lot of tournaments there, the 1996 and 98 and 2000 African Cups, as well as the 1998 World Cup, where he was a starter there. He was a central defender, Sami Trabelsi. In terms of management, he managed the team from 2011 to 13 and took them through two cups, the 2012 African Cup and the 2013 African Cup. They reached the quarterfinals in one of those and fell at the group stage in another. So Sami Trabelsi coming back in. Other than coaching the Tunisia national team twice, and he had been an assistant coach before his first one, he did manage Al Saleh in Qatar for 10 years. So he has those connections to Qatar. Perhaps that'll help them in the Arab Cup. Anyway, Sami Trabelsi leading them through this tournament. let's go. And we won't give details on any of the interim managers or that previous manager. We go on rather to goalkeepers, and we'll begin by listing the candidates here and their likelihood, and then we'll tell you why we think that through the narrative and the biographies after. So we have at the definite level, Eamon Daman, and two candidates at the likely level, Bashir Ben Saeed and Nuruddin Farhati. No candidates at the possible level, but two at the possible but unlikely level, Sami Halal and um, Abdesalam Halawi. And then three at the seemingly off the squad. One of them actually does come into the narrative. That's going to be Amanala Memichi. Also at this seemingly off the squad, Moez Ben Sharifa, and we have Muez Hassan, and we also have Ali Jamal. So we won't give too much detail on them, but we will touch briefly on them when we get to the biographies. Let's do the narrative first, though. So going into the previous cup, we did do a media cast on Tunisia, and we had concluded or expected Bashir Ben Saeed to be the starter, and he was. He started all three games. After the Cup, he went on to start the next four games. Those were in March and June of 2024. However, those would be his last games or his last starts. He was on the bench for the next four in the fall of 2024, but he was not called up for four after that. In March and June 2025, but he returned at least to the bench for the games in September and October 2024. So he is on the bench. He might be a backup keeper, judging by that. Going back a bit, replacing him for the fall 2024 games was newcomer Amanala Mamish, and he played the first five of those six fall African Cup qualifying games. However, after giving up an own goal to Madagascar in Game 5, he was subbed out at halftime and never called up again. Sounds pretty harsh. Eamon Daman stepped in for him as the substitute there and became the starting keeper right up until the end of the period. So there we have it. And that's why we have Eamon Daman as a definite candidate. Let's meet him with an introduction. So Eamon Daman has been with Tunisia since 2021 with 28 caps and no goals, and he is 28 years old, plays for Sfaxian in Tunisia, just like the manager did. And just like the manager is actually his second stint with them since 2024. He played for Al Hazm in Saudi Arabia before that, the team that the old manager went to manage. Eamon Daman was not part of the African Cup squad in 2019, but he was in 2021. He was on the roster but saw no action there. And in the World Cup in 2022, he was the starting keeper in those games. But for the 2023 African Cup, again, just on the bench there. And as we saw in the narrative, he came in and started the last 9 games during this period. And it's just 4 matches that he hadn't been selected for. So Eamon Daman, a definite candidate, and looks to be the starter. But we'll talk about that in part 2. We're just interested in making the squad here. Let's look at the first of the likely candidates, Bashir Ben Saeed, been with Tunisia since 2022 with 21 caps and No goals, of course. 1994 was the year of his birth, so he's 31 years old, and he plays for Esperance in Tunisia. Was the starting keeper in the 2021 African Cup, just on the bench for the 2022 World Cup, but starter again in the 2023 African Cup. So basically, he and Eamon Daman have been sharing the starting position in tournaments. Bashir Ben Said, as we saw, started the first 4 games of this period. And he was on the bench for 8 games, as we described, including the last 4 matches, but not selected for 6 games in the middle there. So Bashir Ben Said losing the starting position. The other likely candidate is Noureddin Farhati. He has no caps for the national team and is 25 years old, plays for Stade Tunisien in Tunisia since 2025. Moved from a fairly small club, Ben Gourdain, in Tunisia before that, so he's kind of working his way up there. He got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2025. Didn't start any of the 8 remaining games, but he was on the bench for 7 of them. So looks to be a backup keeper here. The first of our possible but unlikely candidates is Sami Hilal. We won't get into biographical information with players at this level, but we will tell you he was on the bench for. He also came in March 2025. He was on the bench for 3, but not selected for 5, including the last 4 matches. So Sami Hilal with a chance, but not a good chance. Abdesalam Halawi, also no caps for the national team, and he came in late too. In June of 2025, didn't start any, and also not selected for the last 4 matches. So he was just on the bench for 2. Our first seemingly off the squad player plays a bigger role, though, Amin El Mamish. With Tunisia since 2024 with 5 caps, and he's just 21 years old. And so we might see him in the future. He was selected for the preliminary squad in 2023, but didn't make the final cut. He got his first appearance on the bench in June 2024, and he was the player who took over and started 5 games in a row, and was on the bench for 3, but not selected for the last 8 matches. So he seems to have kind of come and gone. The next one, Moez Ben Sharifa, is a very experienced keeper for Tunisia. He's been involved in tournaments since the 2012 African Cup. So he would have played under Trabelsi last time. However, he last appeared in November of 2024. So he is 34 years old now, so maybe a bit too old. Seeming not too old for a goalie, I must say. Wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Trabelsi brought him back in. Anyway, our next candidate, Muez Hassan, also very experienced, has been part of many tournaments, was a starter, actually, in the 2018 World Cup. But he last appeared in March of 2024, so he seems off the squad. We'll give more details on him if he is selected for the final squad, but that doesn't seem likely at this point. Our last candidate at this level is Ali Jamal, and he was actually a sub in the 2021 African Cup. On the bench there, but not called up for the 2 tournaments after that, the World Cup in 2022 and the recent African Cup. He was on the preliminary squad for that one, but last appeared on the bench in September of 2024. So Ali Jamal seemingly off the squad. But you never know, some of these players do get selected by surprise, and we'll tell you in part 2 which ones do. It's time, though, to move on to defenders, and we begin with central defenders here. And as we saw in section 1, this is a 2-man position most of the time in 89% of the games. So just 2 of the games we see a 3-man backline. there. Let's look at the candidates. And we have Montasar Talby as a definite candidate. And then we have Dylan Braun as a likely candidate. In fact, we have three likely candidates here. The second one is Ala Graham. And the third one is Yassine Meraya. I'm going to actually put him at the top of that list of likely candidates because you'll see when you get to the narrative probably why I'm doing that. Beyond that, we have no players at the possible level, but two players at the possible but unlikely level. The first one is Hamza Ben Abda, and the second one is Marouane Sahraoui. And we also have a player named Nader Gandry, but we've moved him to the central midfield because his two starts were in the central midfield, defensive midfield, I should say. So we'll come back to him, but let's look at the story over the period, beginning with our media cast for the last African Cup. We did well in predicting Montasir Talby and Yassine Maraya as the starting pairing in the Cup. Actually, that took no great genius, but we're still happy to be right. They played all three of the games as a pairing. Talby continued as a starter throughout. He missed only 3 games, and 2 of those due to injury. Mariah, on the other hand, started only half of the games, including all of those in June and in the fall of 2024. But when March 2025 came around, he was injured and lost his starting position. He was actually only injured for 2 games, but never really regained the starting position, but did come back to start their second last game. That was his only start in 2025. Talby's injury, we said he was injured for 2 games. That was right after the Cup in March of 2024. And we saw Mariah was not selected either. So the new interim manager went with a back 3 central defenders. Those were the 2 games in March of 2024 where they used 3 central defenders. One of them was Dylan Braun, and the other was left back Usama Haddadi, and then defensive midfielder Hamza Jalasi. Now, those 2 players are not really worth remembering because they were off the team fairly quickly. But Dylan Braun did come in to replace Mariah when he was injured in March of 2025. And however, didn't start the June matches. It was another player, Ala Graham, starting the 2 June matches. However, Braun did return and played 3 of the 4 matches at the end there in the fall of 2025. And as we saw, the other one was played by Yassine Maraya, returning to a starting position for the second last game. All right, that's the story. I think pretty good considering we are talking about 2 to 3 positions here. So let's look at the candidates. Montasar Talby then, a real steady presence in central defence. He's been with the team since 2021, but has 56 caps and 3 goals already, and he's just 27 years old. He plays for Lorient in France since 2022 and has been all over Europe, Rubin Kazan in Russia, in Italy and Turkey as well. He was born in France, Montasar Talby, and was a starter in the 2021 African Cup, the World Cup in 2022, and in the recent Cup in 2024, as we saw. And over the recent period, he has started 15 of their 18 games. And yes, we said in the narrative he was injured for the first 2 and on the bench for 1 other. So Montasar Talby, a definite candidate for selection. The first of our three likely candidates, Yassine Mariah, has been with Tunisia since 2015, 89 caps and 5 goals for him. And he is now 32 years old, plays for Esperance in Tunisia, but didn't always play in Tunisia. He's played in UAE, Greece, and Turkey as well. And his first tournament was the World Cup in 2018. He was actually on the preliminary squad for the 2017 African Cup, but didn't make the final cut. Nevertheless, he was a starter in the 2018 World Cup, and in most tournaments since then, starting and finishing all games. The only one he missed was the 2021 African Cup due to injury there. So he actually scored 2 of their goals recently, one in qualification for this cup and one in qualification for the World Cup there. And he started 9 of their 18 games over the period, so half of the games, and we kind of covered that in the narrative. He was injured for a couple of games, not selected for 5 until coming back for the second last match there. Okay, Dylan Braun is the other likely candidate, or the second of 3, actually. He's been with Tunisia since 2017 with 46 caps and 2 goals. He's 30 years old now. He was born in France, but is playing for Servette in Switzerland since 2025. So recently moved there from Salernitana in Italy. But started with a few clubs in France there and Belgium also. Dylan Braun was a starter in the World Cup in 2018, but he did sub out of game 2 injured in that one. Has not been called up for all the tournaments, actually was for the 2019 and 2021 African Cups and the World Cups in 2018 and 2022, but not selected, not called up for the 2023 African Cup, the last one. In fact, surprisingly, not even named for the 53-man preliminary squad there. However, over the recent period, he came back and started 7 of their 18 games and was on the bench for 6 and not selected for 5 others. So a likely candidate, Dylan Braun. Our third likely candidate is Ala Graham, and he's been with Tunisia since 2023 with 6 caps and no goals, and he is 24 years old. He plays for Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine since 2024 and was with Sfaxian in Tunisia before that. His first tournament was the 2023 African Cup. He was on the roster but saw no action. In fact, he was only on the bench for the first game there and not even called up to the bench for the other 2. Ala Graham started 3 of their 18 games over this period. He subbed in for 1, but he was on the bench for 9, so just 4 matches he was not called up for. That's why we have him as a likely candidate. So just 4 central defenders. But we do have 2 possible but unlikely ones. The first is Hamza Ben Abda. He is new to the squad, got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2025, but not selected for the last 6 matches. The other one is Marouane Sarawi, also got his first appearance in June 2025 on the bench and not selected for the last 4 matches, so just on the bench for 1 game. Again, we'll get more information if they do make the squad, but that seems very unlikely at this point. So 4 central defenders, but Tunisia has kind of been doing that for a while. Most teams bring 5 or 6 to the cup. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a new name coming in just to strengthen up the bench there. But meanwhile, we're going to move on to left and right backs, beginning with left backs and beginning with nominating the candidates. So we have a definite candidate in Ali Abdi. No candidates at the likely level, but we have Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida. And I've heard different versions of his name, Mohammed Amin or Mohammed Ben Hamida. I'll just say the whole thing. for now, just because I'm not really sure. And then at the possible but unlikely level, we have Amin Cherney and seemingly off the squad, Usama Haddadi uh, there, and also seemingly off the squad, Ali Malul there. So we'll take a look at those players. They're very experienced. And let's go to the narrative for this position. So going into the previous cup, we pegged Ali Abdi as a definite starter. And we were very surprised when Ali Manuel got the nod for the first game. However, our universe was set right when Abdi started games 2 and 3. In fact, Ali Manu was never called up after that, after the cup, while Abdi started most of the games over this period. 13 of the 18 games he was a starter for. He was absent, however, for the October 2024 games, where he was replaced by Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida. And in June 2025, he was also absent, and Amin Cherney got his only start. Finally, Abdi was injured for the September 2025 games, and surprisingly, it was attacking midfielder Mordata Ben Uwains, who will meet, well, much later downfield, but he stepped in here in September 2025, but Ali Abdi did return for the last 2 games in October, so he has definitely got a pretty firm grip on the position. Let's meet him, Ali Abdi. He has been with Tunisia just since 2021 with 39 caps and 6 goals. He's 32 years old. So a bit of a late joiner to Tunisia. He plays for Nice in France right now, and he moved actually from Tunisia to France in 2019. So prior to that, he was with a few clubs in Tunisia. His first cup was the 2021 African Cup, and he played in the World Cup and the recent African Cup. Actually, usually not a starter in those games. In the World Cup, he did start games 1 and 2, but in the African Cups, he started on the bench. But as you, and he's also a scorer. He scored 2 of their 7 goals in African Cup 2025 qualifying for this cup, and then 1 of their goals in World Cup qualifying. So he has 6 goals, which is pretty good for a defensive player. Ali Abdi started 13 of their 18 games over this period. He was subbed in for 1, on the bench for 1, injured for 2. So just 1 match that he was not called up for. We covered most of that in the narrative. Anyway, a definite candidate, Ali Abdi. No candidates at the likely level. So we have at the possible level Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida, and he's been with Tunisia since 2021, just like Ali Abdi. But unlike Ali Abdi, he only has 9 caps and no goals. And he is 30 years old too, so a bit late in joining the squad as well. Ben Hamida plays for Esperance in Tunisia since 2016, actually. He was also with their youth club from 5 years of age, so he's an Esperance man through and through. Ben Hamida was selected for the 2021 African Cup, just on the bench there, or not even on the bench, to be honest, only for 1 game. I should explain that. When they're allowed to bring 27 players to the Cup, they can still only bring 23 players to the bench. So it means a couple of the other players have to, I don't know, stay in the hotel and watch the game from there or something like that, probably up in the stands. But that's where we get players not even making it to the bench. He wasn't selected for the 2022 World Cup or the 2023 African Cup. In fact, He came back after a more than 2.5 year absence in October of 2024, Ben Hamida, and started two of their remaining 12 games. He was on the bench for two and not selected for 8 others, including the last two matches. But because he was there for the September 2025 games, we have him as a possible candidate. Let's look at our possible but unlikely candidate, Amin Cherney. Well, we'll just tell you that he started one of the games over the period, but was not selected for 11 games, including the last match. So we consider him unlikely. The first of the two seemingly off the squad players is Usama Haddadi. Actually, both of them are very experienced. We won't spend too much time on it, though. Usama Haddadi has been with the team since 2015 and has been part of several tournaments, including the 2023 African Cup. However, he started the first two games, as we saw in the narrative, started the first two games as a centre-back, part of a three-man backline. He was on the bench for the next two games and then not selected after that. So for the last 14 matches, not called up. Ali Malul is a real veteran, 90 caps for him since 2013, and was part of every tournament since the 2015 African Cup. Check that. He was not selected for the 2019 African Cup, but otherwise selected for all tournaments. So a big player for them. And but was injured over the period. For some reason, he was ineligible to play in the fall 2024 African Cup qualifiers. So injury and ineligibility plagued him over the period. And the last time he did appear, as we saw in the narrative, was in the 2023 African Cup. So Ali Malul, 35 years old, seemingly off the squad. But yes, that's a big veteran off the team. And we're going to move on here. I'm just doing a little computer work while we go here. Okay, that is it for left backs, and let's move on to right backs here. We'll introduce the candidates. No definite candidate here, but we have Jan Valery as a likely candidate, and we have Mutaz Nafati as a possible candidate. And then two candidates possible but unlikely. The first one is Mahmoud Gorbel, and the other one is Hussein Hassan Romdane. And finally, we have another big player seemingly off the squad here, or two of them, to be honest. The first one is Wajdi Katrida, and he is seemingly off the squad, Wajdi Katrida. And the other one is Hamza Mathlouthi. So both of those pretty familiar names for Tunisia. Oh my goodness, we have two more. These are smaller names. We have Raid Bouchniba and Gaith Zalouni. All four of those players seemingly off the squad. We'll come back and quickly visit them. But let's go to the narrative. Going into the previous cup, we picked quite confidently Wajdi Katrida as the starter in the cup, and blessedly we were right. He started all three games, and then he did start. He did start the next two games in March of 2024. However, after that, he only started one more game over the whole period. That was in November 2024 when he got a red card in what proved to be his last game. Brand spanking new player Rai Bouchniba came in for the first four African Cup qualifiers in the fall of 2024. However, he was never selected after that. The new interim manager brought back Katrida, but after his red card, Mahmoud Gorbel started three of the games. there. That would be November, and then the two March 2025 games. And in June 2025, Jan Valery came in and started all five of the remaining games. So he seems to have swooped up the position there. Um, and Wajdi Kashrida is out. Let's take a look at the players in more detail, beginning with Jan Valery. He wasn't new to the team when he took over at the end there. He's been with Tunisia since 2022. He has 15 caps and no goals for them and is 26 years old. He was born in France, actually played for French youth teams there, and is currently with Sheffield Wednesday in England. And prior to that, he was with Angers in France. But actually, he's kind of been between England and France with his clubs, and he was selected for the 2023 African Cup, but he was on the bench for all three of those games there. As we saw, he really wasn't a factor until the end of the period here. He started the last six games there, and he was on the bench for two and injured for two. Not selected for 8 matches over the period. Anyway, Jan Valery making a bid for the starting position at the end. It'll be interesting to see if he starts in those November friendlies or Arab Cup games. The likely candidate is Mutaz Nefati. He's been with Tunisia since 2024. Just one cap for him. Is 21 years old. He was born in Sweden and is playing in Sweden for Norrköping. However, he was loaned to KR Reykjavik in Iceland in 2024. So Mutaz Nefati got his first appearance on the bench just recently in September 2025. Didn't start any of the 4 remaining games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2 there. So we think he is a possible candidate. 2 possible but unlikely candidates. The first is Mahmoud Gorbel. He's young, 22 years old. And he got his first appearance on the bench in November of 2024 and actually did start 3 games there. 3 of their 10 games. He was on the bench for 2 more, but then not selected for the last 5 matches. So Mahmoud Gorbel, perhaps we'll see him in the future because he is young. And Hussein Hassan Romdane is 25 years old, no caps for Tunisia, and he came in June of 2025, didn't start any games, just on the bench for 2, and then not selected for the last 4. So big off the squad, probably. The first of our seemingly off the squad players is Wajdi Katrida. As we said, we expected him to be the starter in the last African Cup, and he was. We won't go through a lot of detail on him, other than to say that he last appeared for the national team in November of 2024. So not quite a veteran. He has 38 caps, but an experienced player who had been in several cups there. The other one, Hamza Mathlouthi, actually has kind of been in and out of the squad, but is a veteran of several cups as well. He has 39 caps for Tunisia since 2014. He also last appeared in November 2024, and he was on the bench then, so hasn't been called up for a tournament since the 2021 African Cup. Hamza Mathlouthi. And the other 2 are much less experienced players. The first one is Raid Bouchniba, but he did come up in the narrative there. He's 22 years old, and he came in September of 2025. That must be September 2024. He started 4 games in the fall of 2024 there, and then was not selected again. So just in September and October 2024, and hasn't been heard from since. Well, he might have been heard from, but he hasn't been called up since. The other one is Gaith Zalouni, and also new to the squad, fairly new to the squad. No, I don't know when he joined the squad because he has no caps. He must be fairly new because he's 23 years old. He was on the preliminary squad for the last African Cup and last appeared on the bench in March of 2024. So it looks like they had some interest in him around the time of the last African Cup, but have since lost interest in Gaith Zalouni. All right, that's a lot of players to deal with. But we are finished defenders, and we're going to move on to the midfield then, and we'll begin with defensive midfielders. Well, let's begin with just a little comment on the position itself. We saw in section 1 that their two most used formations are 4-3-3, which is 3 midfielders across the middle. That sounds pretty obvious. And a 4-2-3-1, which is 2 defensive midfielders. But I don't think there's a lot of separation between defensive and central midfielders, and it could be central midfielders even when it's the defensive formation there. So we'll deal with them together. Let's look at the candidates here. So for defensive midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Ferjani Sassi. No candidates at the likely level, but then at the possible level, we have Nader Gandri. We mentioned him in central defence because he's coded as a central defender, but his starts were in the central midfield here, so we'll deal with him here. The second of 3 of the 2 possible candidates is Haj Mahmoud. And then we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates, Husam Taka and Moez Haj Ali. And then one seemingly off the squad player, Hamza Jalassi. So those are the characters in our drama. Let's look. No. We're going to do central midfielders as well. So we have a definite candidate in Aissa Leidouni and a likely candidate in Elias Skiri and a possible candidate in Anis Ben Slimani. And 2 players seemingly off the squad, Galen Shalili and Mutez Zadem. And sorry, there is a third one as well, Idris El Mizouni. So we'll take a quick look at those. We have a lot of candidates to deal with here, but let's go to the story of the position now. So going into the Cup, we predicted confidently that Aissa Leidouni and Elias Skiri would be the starters. Leidouni did not start game 1 to our surprise, but he did come in for games 2 and 3 and went on to start 14 of their 18 games over the period. So keep that in mind. He's the main man usually on the field. Skiri was injured for the March 2024 games after the Cup, but he started both June games, but then only 2 games after that, although one was the second last game. So basically he was absent until returning right near the end. In March 2024, it was a 3-man midfield. So effectively 2 players replaced the injured Skiri, and alongside Leidouni, it was left attacking midfielder Mohamed Ben Romdane and the central defender Nader Gandri. And actually it was Gandri in the center there with the Leidouni and Romdane flanking him. But that only continued for a brief time. Both of those, Ben Romdane and Gandri, took turns as the third midfielder alongside Leidouni and a returning Skiri in the June 2024 games. But Ben Romdane drifted out of being a starter over the rest of the period, while Gandri drifted off the team basically drifted off the team altogether. Excuse me a sec. In the fall 2024 games under the interim managers, we saw various players come in alongside Leidouni. Ferjani Sassi was one, and left attacking midfielder Saifala Lateef, sometimes called Saif Lateef. Each of those players appeared twice. Anis Ben Slimani got 2 starts under the new manager, Sami Trabelsi, in March of 2025. And then attacking midfielder Hannibal Mejbri appeared a couple of times in the midfield. So apart from Leidouni, things remained quite unsettled until the end. But Ferjani Sassi did start 2 of the fall 2025 games alongside Leidouni, while Hannibal Mejbri moved up to a more attacking position towards the end. Okay, so we'll begin by looking at Leidouni. No, we'll begin by looking at the defensive midfielder, player coded as defensive midfielder, starting with Ferjani Sassi. And he is a veteran with the team since 2013 with 92 caps and 9 goals. And he's 33 years old. And he's playing for Al Gharafa in Qatar right now since 2023. Actually has been in Qatar since 2021 and played for Zamalek in Egypt prior to that. Ferjani Sassi has been part of tournaments since the 2015 African Cup, and the only ones he missed were the 2021 and 2023 African Cups. He was involved in both of the World Cups there, a starter in 2018 and a sub in 2022. And he scored 3 of their goals recently, 1 in African Cup qualifying and 2 in World Cup qualifying. He did actually return after a 10-month absence, keeping in mind he wasn't on the squad for the last African Cup. He came back in September of 2024 and started 7 of their remaining 14 games, as well as subbing in for 4. So just 3 matches that Ferjani Sassi was not selected for. So perhaps a bit generously, we have him as a definite candidate. I'm tempted to move him down to likely candidate with that, and I think I will. It's not quite strong enough to consider him a definite candidate. So likely candidate for Ferjani Sassi. Let's go to the 2 possible candidates. The first one, Nader Gandri, has been with Tunisia since 2019 with 19 caps and no goals. And he plays for Akhmat Grozny in Russia, and has been with clubs in Belgium and Bulgaria and UAE, quite experienced. But he was born in France, and his first few clubs were in France. Nader Gandri was selected for the 2022 World Cup. But that's the only tournament he's been involved in. He wasn't selected for the 2023 African Cup, just on the preliminary squad. Gandri started 3 of their 18 games over the period, but he did sub in for 6 and was on the bench for 3, including the last 2 matches, but was not selected for 6 matches over the period. So Nader Gandri, a possible candidate. The other possible candidate is Haj Mahmoud. He's been with Tunisia since 2023, but just 2 caps for the 25-year-old, who plays for Lugano in Switzerland since 2021. He was in Tunisia before that. He was selected, Haj Mahmoud, for the 2023 African Cup, but didn't see any action in the tournament, and in fact was only on the bench for game 2 there. Over the period, Haj Mahmoud started 1 of their 18 games and subbed in for 1. He was on the bench for 6, though. He was injured for 2 and not selected for 8. So he's in the possible level. The first of the possible but unlikely is Houssam Taka, and he was selected for the 2023 African Cup, but was not on the bench for any of the games. But he did come back to the, well, I'd say come back after a 9-month absence, because I'm not sure he even attended the African Cup that he was selected for. Anyway, the long and short of it is he was on the bench for 4 games and then not selected for the last 10. So Husam Taka kind of on the outskirts of Tunisia's squad here. The other possible but unlikely candidate is Moez Haj Ali, and he got his first cap in June 2025. He did start 1 game and was on the bench for 1, but then not selected for any of the fall 2025 games. Finally, we have seemingly off the squad Hamza Jalassi, and he's been with the team since 2019, but has earned only 5 caps. He's 34 years old now, and he's playing in Tunisia, but has played, well, most of his clubs were in Tunisia, but he played in Libya. Oh, I shouldn't be going into detail on him. Tournament-wise, he was selected for the 2023 African Cup, but didn't see any action. He started the first 2 of their 18 games in March of 2024, but then was not selected after that. So Hamza Jalassi seemingly off the team. Those are the defensive midfielders. Let's take a look at the central midfielders, beginning with the staple in the midfield, Issa Saluni. Issa Leidouni, I don't know where that mispronunciation came from. Issa Leidouni has been with Tunisia since 2021, but has 59 caps and 2 goals for them. He's 29 years old and plays for Al Wakra in Qatar, but he has played in Germany, Hungary, and Romania, as well as France, where he was born. Actually, he moved from France to Romania in 2018. And he's been part of the squad since the 2021 African Cup. He was pretty recognizable in the 2022 World Cup there, trying to pump up the fans. And in the 2023 African Cup, we expected him to start, but he actually subbed into the first game at halftime and then started. Over the period, he started 14 of their 18 games and subbed in for 2, and was on the bench for 1. So just 1 match that he was absent for. Issa Leidouni, so you can consider him a staple there. Elias Skiri has been with Tunisia. He's at the likely level, by the way. Has been in with Tunisia since 2018 and has 73 caps and 3 goals. And he's 30 years old. He plays for Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany since 2023. Was with FC Cologne in Germany before that, and French teams prior to that, because Skiri was born in France. And he's been part of squads ever since the 2018 World Cup, and as a starter in all tournaments since then. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tournaments, including the 2022 World Cup. And over the recent period, Skiri started 5 of their 18 games, as we saw in the narrative. So not starting much during this period. He was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 1. And out with 2 separate injuries for 4 matches. But there were 6 matches that he was not selected for. So nevertheless, we consider Elias Skiri a likely candidate. The possible candidate is Anis Ben Slimani, and he's been with Tunisia since 2020 with 38 caps and 4 goals, and he's just 24 years old. Feels like he's been around for longer than that. He's currently with Norwich in England since 2025 and was with Sheffield United in England before that, but has played in Denmark quite a bit. Actually, that's because he was born in Denmark and actually played for their under-19 team as well. Ben Slimani, his first tournament was the 2021 African Cup. He subbed into game 1 there and then gained the starting position, and then was selected for the 2022 World Cup and the 2023 African Cup, a starter in both of those, Ben Slimani. But he was off the team after the African Cup for 14 months. He returned in March of 2025 and started 3 of their remaining 8 games, as well as subbing in for 3. but was not selected, I think, for the last two matches. My information seems to be wrong here, but that would be why we have him at the portable level, because I believe it was the last two matches that he was not selected for. So Ben Slimani, nevertheless, despite my mistakes, there is a possible candidate. Then three players seemingly off the squad. The first one is Gaelin Chalili. He has been with Tunisia since 2017 with 32 caps and 1 goal, and has 31. He's 31 years old. He's basically a bit of a liability for taking a red card. Or a yellow card or red card, Chalili. He was part of the squad for the 2018 World Cup, but just appeared in one game there in the game 3, and has been called up for all the tournaments since then, except for the 2023 African Cup, the most recent one, and wasn't even selected for the preliminary squad there, but did come back briefly, last appearing for the national team in 2024. So, sorry, I think I gave too much information for a player seemingly off the squad. So I won't do that for the next two, who are nevertheless less experienced. Moutez Zadam has 3 caps for Tunisia, last appeared on the bench in June of 2024. And Idris El Mazouni is French-born, and he returned after a 5.5-year absence in November 2024. But he just started a game and was on the bench for a game, and then not selected again for the last 8 matches. So seemingly off the squad. Okay, those are the defensive and central midfielders. And basically you can think of Leidouni and one or two players alongside of him, most likely Elias Skiri there. Okay, for left and right midfielders, despite the fact that they have played a 4-3-3 quite a bit, it's been the central and defensive midfielders we just introduced, filling out the position. We don't have any players coded specifically as left and right midfielders. So we move on upfield to left attacking midfielders. And just to summarize this position, it depends on the formation. So it could be an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or even a left forward in a 4-3-3 formation. Left attacking midfielders cover those, and usually it's the same group of players who cover it. So let's look at the group of players for Tunisia. Now, things actually got a little bit messy for Tunisia in the attacking end of the field. So we have a lot of candidates who have been coming in and out. No candidates at the, I haven't even moved my graphic yet. There we go, attacking midfielders. No candidates at the definite level, but at the likely level, we have 2 candidates. The first is Ismail Garbi, and the second is Elias Saad. We have Naeem Sliti coded as a left attacking midfielder, but we've moved him to the right side because that's where he played mostly. And at the possible level, we have Mohamed Ben Romdane. And we have Elias Achouri. Oh, we should have him as a likely candidate. I'm going to put him actually at the top of the likely list and move him up. The reason we put him as a possible candidate was because he was absent for the last 2 games, but actually played fairly big role over the period here. So we're going to just move him. To the top of the likely list, to the top of the list. Okay, aside from Mohamed Ben Romdane, then at the possible level, we have Saifallah Latif, or sometimes listed as Saif, Sayf, Latif, and he's possible. A couple of other candidates we've moved. We'll get to them when we get to the right side. But significantly, we have a player seemingly off the squad, Yusuf Msakni. So a very big name for the squad there. And we have another seemingly off the squad player in Ali Youssef. Okay, that is what we have. Those are the candidates. Let's look uh, at the narrative of the position. So for left attacking midfielder, we it actually was fairly stable, or it seemed fairly stable going into the previous cup. In our media cast, we predicted Yusuf Msakni would be the starter, and he was for the opening game, but he moved to the right for game two, and it was right attacking midfielder Elias Achuri starting games 2 and 3 here. So we have moved him over to this side because he was more prominent here. After the cup, actually for the March 2024 games, the position didn't exist. It was a 5-3-2 formation. In June, though, Achuri played the first game, and Elias played the second game. That's Elias Sad, I should say. Elias Sad played the second game. The position was never settled, though, for more than a couple of games in a row. So we had various players coming in. Msakni actually returned for what would be his last game in October of 2024. And Saifala Lateef played 3 in a row after that. But in March, he was the first of 4 different players. Um, and that kind of continued over the period. The most prominent player in the position in 2025, and actually overall, was Elias Achuri. But I think that's, 4 or 5 starts in the position meant he was the one who started the most. So a very unsettled position here. Anyway, let's look at the candidates. Elias Achuri has been with Tunisia since 2022. He has 23 caps and 3 goals and is 26 years old. And he plays for Copenhagen in Denmark there. And his first tournament was the African Cup in 2023. He started all 3 games there. And over the period, he started 8 of their 18 games, but wasn't selected for 7 others, including the last 2 matches. Anyway, he's quite versatile. We're going to see him in other positions. And despite missing half the games over the period, I agree that he should be a likely candidate, or we should put him at the likely level here. The second likely candidate is Ismail Garbi. He's new to the team since 2025. He has 1 goal scored in World Cup qualifying there, and is 21 years old. He plays for Braga in Portugal, or is at least on their roster because he's on loan to Augsburg in Germany since 2025. Prior to that, he was with Paris Saint-Germain. From 2021 to 2024. So I'm with their youth club actually for 7 years. So that looks good on a resume. Ismail Garbi. And he was born in France. He's connected to Spain too. He played for Spain's underage teams as well as France's, but threw his lot in with Tunisia there. He doesn't have any tournament experience though. He got his first cap in September of 2025 and started 2 of their remaining 4 games, as well as subbing in for 2 others. So quite young, but perhaps he is a solution over on the left side, given that Yusuf Sakni is gone. The third likely candidate is Elias Sad. He's also fairly new, been with Tunisia since 2024 with 8 caps and 3 goals. All of those goals were in World Cup 2026 qualifying. He was their second top scorer there. And he was born in Germany and plays for Augsburg in Germany, the club that Garbi is on loan to. So they play together. And all of his clubs have been in Germany. he was on the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup, but not selected. So he got his. I guess he must have started a game before that. Hang on, let me pull myself together here. He started 5 of their 18 games from March 2024 to October 2025. He subbed in for one and was on the bench for three. Struggled with injury a bit. He was out with two separate injuries for 6 games. So that just meant two that he was not called up for. So Elias Saad, new to the team, and Garby and Saad, kind of exciting prospects here. Okay, the first of the possible candidates is Mohammed Ben Ramadan, and he's been with Tunisia since 2019 with 51 caps and 6 goals. He was actually their top scorer in qualifying for the 2026 World Cup with 4 of their goals, and he also scored one in qualification for this cup. And he's been part of the squads for the last 3 tournaments there, just a substitute in the 21 African Cup and the 2022 World Cup, but a starter in the 2023 African Cup. But Ben Ramadan lost his position. He was subbed out at halftime of game 1 and only appeared as a substitute coming late into games 2 and 3 there. So, some recent glory and disappointment for him. He's kind of drifted off the squad over the recent period. He started 7 of their 18 games and was subbed in for 3. But not selected for 4. Just 4 matches he was not selected for, but that includes the last 3 matches. So Ben Ramadan, as I said, kind of drifting off the squad towards the end there. Just a possible candidate here. The other one is Seyfala Lateef, and he's been with Tunisia since 2022 with 21 caps and 1 goal. Lateef is 25 years old and plays for Twente in the Netherlands, actually on loan to Sparta Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And he played also for many teams in Switzerland because he was born there, and that includes Basel, one of the biggest teams in Switzerland. He kind of worked his way up to that level and then moved to the Netherlands. Lateef was part of the squad for the 2023 African Cup. He subbed into all 3 games there, and over the recent period, he started 5 of their 18 games, as well as subbing in for 6, and was on the bench for 2. So 5 matches that he was not selected for. So I would say a strong possible candidate here, Seyfala Lateef. Okay, we moved a couple of players who will meet on the right side here, but let's get to Youssef N'Sakni. Are we finally bidding farewell to the ever-present Youssef N'Sakni? Well, he is 35 years old. He's been with the team since 2010 with 104 caps. So he's a centurion and a pretty good goal record of 23 goals over that period. He has recently moved back to Tunisia, playing for Esperance. His second spell with them since 2025. He was with a couple of clubs in Qatar and in fact spent 10 years with Al Duhai, but they changed their name to Laquia. Spent 10 years with them in Qatar there. So he's always played kind of on the continent there, African continent. His first tournament was the 2010 African Cup, and we could spend a lot of time going through his long history. The only tournament he missed was the 2018 World Cup, due to injury. Otherwise, he's been part of every tournament and a captain of the team since 2021, including the recent African Cup. He scored 2 of their goals in World Cup qualifying, World Cup 2026 qualifying, and where are we at? He started 2 of their 18 games over this period, but then was not selected for the 16 others, including the last 10 matches. So we saw him playing his last game. I think that was in October of 2024. So Yusuf Nzakni moving into retirement there. The other possible, but on the other, and I went into detail him on purpose because we're kind of bidding the veteran farewell with that biography. The other one, seemingly off the squad player, is Ali Youssef. He's been, well, we won't go into detail on him. He last appeared for the national team in September of 2024. He was on the preliminary squad for the 2021 African Cup. But again, we'll introduce him more if he is selected for the squad in the unlikely event that he's selected. Okay, that's the left attacker. So a bit of uncertainty over there, but certainly a couple of candidates that look promising. Let's go over to the right side of the field. And I'll just say that Elias Achuri is actually coded as a right winger, but we moved him to the left side because he played a bit more there. He does show up here and elsewhere too. But anyway, on this side, we have, as a likely candidate, Naeem Sliti. Well, we have a lot of candidates here because they have players kind of coming in and out because they're undecided, as we'll see. So anyway, likely candidate Naeem Sliti. And then we have 2 possible candidates, actually both of them coded as left attackers, but we moved them here because they played here more. The first one, and that's an indication of kind of some of the indecision that we're seeing here. The first one is Amor Leuni, not to be confused with the central midfielder Leiduni. This is Amor Leuni. And also Sebastian Tunetti, both of those possible candidates. And then we have at the seemingly off the squad level, Bassem Surafi and Hamza Rafia. I'm going to move Hamza Rafia to the top there because he was more involved during this period. And finally, one more player, Raki Aouni. Raki Aouni there. Let's look at the narrative of this position. So pretty chaotic. The position actually, even going into the last cup, in our media cast, it kind of read something like this is going to read: very unstable coming into the last cup with out of position players filling it, especially toward the end of the build up to the previous cup. So we were very uncertain and very curious to see who had started. It ended up being Elias Achuri in the cup, in the opening game of the cup, and then it was Hamza Rafia. He's actually coded as an attacking midfielder, but we're dealing with him here. Hamza Rafia in games 2 and 3. So those 2 players, Elias Achuri and Hamza Rafia, especially Rafia, continue to appear in this position, but other players were tried out for single games. Again, players kind of coming in and out. Rafia himself was off the squad by the end of 2024, and left attacking midfielder Naeem Sliti played both of the March 2025 games, but it remained unsettled to the end with 4 different players in the position over the last 4 games. So we can't nominate a solid candidate here. We have Naeem Sliti moved over to here because his only starts were on this side. Naeem Sliti has been with Tunisia since 2016. He's a real veteran with 83 caps and 14 goals. He's 33 years old, and he's played for a couple of clubs in Qatar since 2023, and was with Etifak in Saudi Arabia before that. Prior to that, he was with clubs in France, and Slitty was born in France. He's been part of tournaments since the 2017 African Cup, always a starter up until the 2022 World Cup. So that's 4 tournaments that he was a starter in, including the 2018 World Cup. But by the 2022 World Cup, just a substitute there, and in the 2023 African Cup as well. So and basically was off the team for a year after the 2023 African Cup. He came back in March of 2025 and started 3 of their remaining 8 games, as well as subbing in for 3. But even 2 of those matches he was not selected for. So it seemed like he was kind of drifting off the squad there, but came back. And we do have him as a likely candidate here. The first of the possible candidates, Amor Leouni, is coded as a left attacker, actually, and he's been with Tunisia since 2019 with 12 caps and 1 goal. And like Slitty, he is 33 years old and was born in Sweden. Currently playing for a club in Sweden, Häcken, but he has played in Norway and was loaned to Sydney Wanderers in Australia. There also played for Pyramids, a big club in Egypt. So kind of interesting experience, but he doesn't have any experience in tournaments. In fact, it was a bit surprising that he wasn't even named to the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup. But he did return after a little more than a year absence in November 2024 and started 1 of their games and subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 2, but not selected for 5 matches, including the last 3. So Amor Leouni, a possible candidate, almost unlikely, I would say. The other possible candidate is Sebastian Tunekti, and he's been with Tunisia since 2021, but has earned only 4 caps for the 23-year-old. But perhaps he'll start getting more. He plays or moved to Celtic in 2025, having played for basically smaller teams in Norway. And yes, he's been around, as we said, since 2021, but wasn't selected for any tournaments. In fact, he was off the team for 3.5 years and returned in June of 2025, started 1 of their remaining 5 games and subbed in for 2, but was not selected for 2. So Tunetki, just a possible candidate here. We did see Hamza Rafia playing a fairly big role in the Cup. We won't go into detail on him, but he was selected for the 2023 African Cup on the bench for game 1, but did gain a starting position, and he scored 1 goal in each of the recent qualifications for this tournament and for the 2026 World Cup. However, he last appeared from on the bench in November 2024. So Hamza Rafia, I should say he's only 26 years old, so he's not aging out, but not being selected recently. So seemingly off the squad. The second seemingly off the squad player, Bassem Srafi, also quite experienced in that he's been selected for 3 tournaments, including the 2023 African Cup, but he last appeared in January of 2024 in that African Cup. But he too is quite young, 28 years old, so we may see him coming back. The last one is Raki Aouni, and he's just 21 years old, doesn't have any caps for Tunisia, and his first and only appearance was on the bench in June of 2024, so perhaps a candidate for the future there. That is it. So a lot of candidates. That is a lot of candidates for one position. That and the left side too. So and it's kind of a result of the or difficulty or uncertainty in finding a player. Let's go to the central attacking midfield position. They only use this position in 28% of games over the period, or 5 times. But nevertheless, we have players coded here. The first is Hannibal Mejbri, who sometimes does play in the central midfield, but we kept him here because he has played here more of an attacker during this period than he was in the build-up to the last African Cup. Hannibal Mejbri, though, a definite candidate for us here. And no candidates at the likely level, but we have Firas Ben Larbi, Firas Ben Larbi at the possible level, and then Mortada Ben Uwains. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he popped up as a left back to our surprise in September 2025, but he is coded as an attacking midfielder. And next, we just have one player at the seemingly off the squad level. So let's talk about the central attacking midfield narrative. They use this position once in the cup. That actually is not doesn't count in our 5 times since then. Once in the cup, and it was the versatile Anis Ben Slimani in the role. He's a central midfielder, but is actually fairly versatile. In the fall of 2024, the African Cup qualifying games, they used a position in 3 of those games, and these turned out to be the last games or among the last games for both Hamza Rafia and for Yusuf Msakni. There, but when they used it 3 times in the fall, the third time they used it in the fall of 2024, it was Hannibal Mejbri, and it was him again when they used the position 2 times in the fall of 2025. So as we said, Mejbri, more of an attacking player during this period. Let's take a look at the candidates here. Hannibal Mejbri has been with Tunisia since 2021, 38 caps and 1 goal. He seems a veteran already, but he's only 22 years old. He's recently, in 2024, moved to Burnley in England, but was part of the Manchester United system. There, he played for their youth club as well. He was actually born in France and played for France underage teams. His first tournament was in 2021, so that's what I mean. He seems a veteran even though he's still young. Starter in that tournament in 2021, but subbed out at halftime of game 1 and was on the bench after that. In the World Cup 2022, he only appeared in game 1 as a substitute there, and then for the 2023 African Cup he withdrew himself from consideration for the squad, citing that his club situation at Man United was more important. However, he did return after a year-long absence in October of 2024, and he started 7 of their remaining 12 games, as well as subbing in for 3 and being on the bench for 1. So just 1 match recently that he hasn't been there for, and scored 1 of their goals in World Cup qualifying. So Hannibal Mejbri looks like he will be part of this tournament. The first of the possible candidates, Firas Ben Larbi, has been with Tunisia since 2019, but only 16 caps in that time with 3 goals. And he's 29 years old, Ben Larbi. He plays for Al Sharjah in UAE, a couple of clubs in UAE actually, after moving from Tunisia in 2020. Has been around since 2019, but never selected for a squad, Firas Ben Larbi. And he returned after a 19-month absence, so about a year and a half there, came back in June of 2025 and started 2 of their remaining 6 games, subbing in for 1 and on the bench for 1. But he was not selected for the last match there, and in fact 3 matches overall. Could this be the year for Ben Larbi to make a tournament? We will see. Just a possible candidate here. The other possible candidate is Mortada Ben Uwains, and he also has not been involved in the tournament, even though he's been on the team since 2019. He has 14 caps and is 31 years old and plays for Kasımpaşa in Turkey since 2021. He was in Tunisia before that. But yes, he too. Uh, Well, he was selected for the 2023 African Cup, Ben Uwains, but he withdrew for personal reasons there. So that he hasn't been through a tournament is due to his own decision, it seems. He also returned to the team after an absence, a year-long absence, and in June of 2024, and started 4 of their remaining 16 games, subbed in for 3 and was on the bench for 3. Ultimately, just 4 matches that he was absent for. But Mortada Ben Uwains, we're seeing as a possible candidate here. Okay, finally, we have the seemingly off the squad player. It's a new player, even though he's 29 years old. No caps for the team, but he was on the preliminary roster for the 2023 African Cup. I suppose I should tell you his name. It's Faisal Mane, and his first and only 2 appearances were on the bench in March of 2024. So looking quite unlikely at this time, but nevertheless on our list. Okay, that is it for central attackers. Woo! Let us move on. No secondary striker. Oh, we do have 2 secondary strikers to talk about. However, they're both at the seemingly off the squad level, and they don't actually use a formation with this position. But let's look at the candidates who are at least coded this way. The first one is Anas Haj Mohammed, and the other one is Issam Jebali. So we'll just quickly deal with them here. Anas Haj Mohammed is Italian born and last appeared for the national team in 2024. He was on the preliminary squad for the African Cup in 2023, but didn't make the cut. November 2024, his last appearance. Issam Jebali has more experience with the national team with 16 caps and 2 goals. That's since 2018, so he's always kind of been on the fringes a bit. He plays for Gamba Osaka in Japan since 2023 and has been part of 2 tournaments, the 2021 African Cup, where he was a substitute, and then a World Cup in 2022, where he actually started games 1 and 2, but didn't score any goals there, despite lining up as a sole forward in both of those games. But not selected for the 2023 African Cup, just on the preliminary squad there, and last appeared for the national team in October of 2023. So actually, he shouldn't really be on our list, but let's see how old he is. 34 years old, so kind of getting up there in age. Issam Jebali seemingly off the squad. Let's move to the forward line, the forwards then. Just in terms of the position, we said in section 1 that it's a single forward in 72% of the games, so about 3/4 of the games. But in about 1/4 of the games, they use a 2-man forward line. And we'll talk about the narrative after we introduce the players' names. The first one is at the definite level. It's Hazem Mastouri there. And the next one is a likely candidate, Firas Chauat, at the likely level. And then we have at the seemingly off the squad, possible but unlikely level, Safadine Jaziri, possible but unlikely. And then several players seemingly off the squad. The first one, Haitham Jouini, and then we have Taha Yassin Kanisi. And then Nabil Makni and Bilal Mejri. Let's go back and look at how the position has played out over the period. Beginning with the Cup, the position was a bit unsettled going into the last Cup, and actually there weren't a lot of viable candidates, as in players who had started regularly. So we thought it might be Haytham Jouini or Taha Yassin Kanasi, but we didn't have much confidence there. Turned out that Kanesi started the first game, but then it was three different players over the next two games. Three, because in one of those games they used a double forward or two forwards. Um, Anyway, among all of those players, Giuini was not one of them. He didn't get a start there, and in fact didn't last long on the team after. So he looked more promising going into the Cup, but not much came of that. We're going to see a lot of players. Well, we won't name them, but a lot of the players who did start as a forward for one or two games are players that we've met in the attacking midfield. And Hamza Rafia and Elias Achuri, they lined up as a starting pair in the two March 2024 games. But after that, it was just a dazzling array of names, only a couple of them starting twice. So that basically revolving door of players continued into 2025. Hazem Mastouri, our definite candidate here, did start twice in March of 2025, and Firas Chao had started both games in June of 2025. And it stuck a bit with Mastouri starting three in the fall of 2025 and Chauat starting the other. So a bit chaotic there in 2024, but towards the end of 2025, we see things taking shape a bit. Let's look at the definite candidate, Hazem Mastouri. Pretty new to the team since 2024. He has 11 caps and 3 goals and is 26 years old. And he plays for a team in Russia, Dynamo Makhachkala in Russia, and played mostly in Tunisia before that, but was with a team in Iraq there for a couple of years. And he's never been part of any tournament. He scored 2 of their goals in World Cup qualifying, 2 of their 22 goals. And his first cap was in November 2024. And he went on to start 7 of their remaining 10 games, as well as subbing in for the 3 others. So Hazem Mastouri looking like a definite candidate here. The likely candidate is Firas Chauat, and he has 20 caps and 4 goals since 2018. And is 29 years old. He's currently with Club Africain in Tunisia. He did play outside of Tunisia, though, in Bahrain and Egypt and Saudi Arabia, but now is back in Tunisia. And he was part of the 2019 African Cup squad as a substitute in 3 of the games, but was not called up for any of the tournaments after that. And actually was off the team for a while. He returned after a more than 4-year absence in March of 2025 and started 3 of their remaining 7 games, as well as subbing in for 3, and was on the bench for 1 other. So it looks like manager Tabelsi has kind of landed on these players. It seems, but we'll check the November games to see if that continues. We have a possible but unlikely candidate in Sefadine Jaziri, and we won't go into detail on him, but he's been part of tournaments since the 2021 African Cup there, and was selected even for the recent Cup in 2023, but just a substitute there. No, he did start 1 game. Sefadine Jaziri. However, he started 2 of their games over the period here and subbed in for 3, but he was not selected for 10. That includes the last 6 matches. So Sefadine Jaziri looking like a possible but unlikely candidate. The first of our seemingly off the squad candidates is Haytham Jouini, been with Tunisia since 2023 and was part of the African Cup squad there, but last appeared, well, he was not called up for the last 10 matches, so I think last appeared in 2024 there, Haytham Jouini. And next, we have Kanesi, the player we thought would be the starter in the previous cup, but his fortunes have not gone well because he's seemingly off the squad here. He's been with Tunisia since 2013 with 54 caps and was part of some of the tournaments, actually missed two of the tournaments over the period, but he was selected for the 2023 African Cup, as we said. He started, actually, he might have started more games, but just 15 minutes into game one, he got an injury which ended his tournament. And the long and short of it is that that was the last time he appeared for the national team. So Kanisi, he's 33 years old and seems to be off the squad here. Okay, the next two are less experienced. It is Nabil Magni. He, well, we'll just say he last appeared in November of 2024, and we'll give more details if he is called up to the squad here. The other one last appeared as a substitute in the fall of 2024, and that was Bilal Meshri. Neither of those players have much experience with the national team. All right, that brings us to the end of section 2. So we want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here, which we're going to release as a short version of part 1 on Tunisia's players. In the full version, we introduce the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad. And if you want some information on the players, some biographical information on the players and more, that's what we did in sections 1 and 2. We looked at the team in section 1, some information on the team. Otherwise, this is a review here, and we're not concerning ourselves here with predicting starters. We're going to save that for part 2. Here we're just looking at the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. So for a manager, we have Sami Trabelsi. He came in February of 2025 and will lead them through this cup. For goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Eamon Daman and two likely candidates in Bachir Ben Said and Nuruddin Farhati. And we do have other players, but we won't talk about players at the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad level here. So let's move on to defenders. For central defenders, we have a definite candidate in Montasar Talbi, and then three likely candidates in Yassine Meria, Dylan Braun, and Ala Graham. That's not a lot of central defenders to bring. I wouldn't be surprised if they added more. Over to left back, we have a definite candidate in Ali Abdi and a possible candidate in Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida. On the right side, no definite candidate there, but a likely candidate, Jan Valery, and a possible candidate in Mutas Nafati. Up we go to the midfield, and we begin with defensive midfielders. No definite candidate there, but a likely candidate in Ferjani Sassi, and two possible candidates, Nadir Gandri, who's actually coded as a central defender, but has been playing as a midfielder here, and the other possible candidate, Haj Mahmoud. Haj Mahmoud. Central midfielders, a definite candidate, Aissa Leidouni. He's kind of the anchor of the midfield, and a likely candidate in Alias Skiri. We also have possible candidate Anis Ben Slimani. All right, moving on further upfield, we go to left attacking midfield, where we have no definite candidate. Things are a bit fuzzy up here, actually, with players coming in and out on the left and right side. We have three likely candidates: Elias Achouri, Ismail Garbi, and Elias Saad. And then two possible candidates: Mohamed Ben Romdane and Saifallah Lateef, who is an injury concern, which we'll talk about soon. On the right side, no candidates at the definite level, but at the likely level, Naeem Sliti, and at the possible level, Amor Leouni and Sebastian Tunekti. They're actually coded as left attackers, all three of them, but we move them over here because this is where they're playing, kind of an indication that things are a bit unsettled up here. Central attackers, we have a definite candidate in Hannibal Mejbri, and then two possible candidates, Firas Ben Larbi and Mortada Ben Uanes. And moving up to the forwards, a definite candidate in Hazem Mastouri, likely candidate Firas Chauat, and that's all we have up here. Both of those guys kind of making their mark at the end of the period here. Let us, okay, we've reviewed the candidate. Let's look at some big names who are off the squad. We went into more detail in them in section 2, but we'll just mention the names here. The first one is left back Usama Haddadi. Actually only has 33 caps, but has been part of several tournaments and has not appeared for the last 14 matches there. The other one is a left back as well. It's Ali Malul, and he has 96 caps for the national team, but last appeared in the 2023 African Cup in January 2024 there. Over to the right side of defense, we have Wajdi Keshrida, last appearing in November of 2024. Again, not a veteran, just 38 caps, but has been a fairly big name over the last little while. But perhaps the biggest name of all, Yusuf Msakni, coded as a left attacking midfielder. He plays kind of all over the attacking end of the field, and he has 104 caps, so he's a centurion, but last appeared in October, I believe it was, of 2024. Didn't get called up for the last 10 matches, so Yusuf Msakni, a bit of a loss for them there. We also have attacking midfielder Hamza Rafia. Well, he seems to be off the squad. He's only 26 years old and 37 caps, but he has been involved. Maybe he shouldn't quite make this list, but there he is. The last one is forward Taha Yassin Kanitsi, and he has 54 caps for the team, 32 years old, but last appeared in January of 2024 in the last African Cup. So some big names there that they're losing. And let's review injuries. We have two injuries to talk about. The first one is to right back Hussein Hassan Romdane. Hussein Hassan Romdane is just a possible but unlikely candidate. Well, now he's going to be off the squad. He got a cruciate ligament injury since early November and is out until May of 2026. So we'll put him in the out of contention category. The only other one is Saifallah Lateef, a left attacking midfielder, who we had as a possible candidate. He's out with an unknown injury since mid-November, with an unknown return date. So perhaps we'll be able to update in part 2 here. Okay, some closing thoughts on Tunisia. Basically, it's fairly stable in defense and midfield, but the forward positions, especially the left and right attacking midfield positions, are very unsettled. We had a lot of players coming in and out, starting 1 or 2 games. That was the case actually in 2024 for the forward position as well, but it was good to see that settle down a bit towards the end. Okay, that was short, but we got to move on to previewing part two here. So we're going to do this in December, early to mid-December, when the preliminary and final squads are published, and we can tell you who made it and who didn't. And we will emphasize any notable non-selections, surprise inclusions, and any new players. We'll also give an update on injuries and my favorite part, our spotlight review, where we try to predict who the starters are going to be. Okay, that is it for part one, and we hope you join us for part two. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.